Watch him throw the ball, we gon' pick it off. You gon' let him hit the hole or you gon' cut it off. You gon' play through fourth and long or you gon' punt it off. Your defenders, heavy hitters, put your pads in. Don't be looking for the ref to throw no flags in. Keep the helmet on, keep the cleats tight. You the type to want to win by any means, right? You should look alive, this is Trap or Dive.
I'm muted. That's what unpreparedness looks like. Welcome back to another Washington Commanders morning show here on the Trap or Dive YouTube channel. I'm your host of the Trap or Dive podcast, Mual. Appreciate everybody who's checking in live. Good morning to all the morning trappers. Welcome in. Al2, I see you. Kevin, I see you. Al2, J Tizzy, I see you. Yes, I was aware, very fortunately, quick enough. Before I even got started, that I was muted. As always, man, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Appreciate everybody who's checking it live. This will fill in for the podcast as well. So if you are listening to this, and you are not aware that there is a morning show, because this is exclusively on YouTube for the most part, but we're in the off season. So no harm, no foul. Go ahead and hit that follow button if you are new. Hit us with a rating review if you can. Welcome to the Commanders Morning Show. You can find these primarily on YouTube. But you get an audio preview right now. You know what I'm saying? Let's get into the show. So I ain't got a lot of time today. I got a lot going on. But, we always got to get that skins fixed here. You hear me? Do you hear me? Hit and misses of 2024. That's going to include the draft. That is going to include the draft. I understand that, and I think we all should be aware, right, that a draft class should not have the book closed or written about them after 1 year. That's understood. But there's always going to be a but in there. There are some picks that you can kind of identify in every class, no matter how high you took them, no matter how low you took them, that you look at them and say, what I don't know what it is about you, but you special. Or I don't think he's gonna cut it. You always gonna have that. You gonna have that opinion, no matter how hard you try not to. You can't just turn a blind, especially if they had enough reps to formulate that. You can't just turn a blind eye and say, "Yeah, I don't think that's gonna cut it." And for Washington, they actually traded for a guy, Marshawn Lattimore, too. So hit and misses is going to include Marshawn. That conversation is going to include a trade acquisition. It's not just draft. It's not just free agency. That is important too. So we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna start off the gate with that, and then we're gonna finish with Daron and John Allen's future. We may be able to swing it a little bit more. You know, we like to talk a lot on this show. Extensive conversations about one topic. So if we have more time, we'll talk about a couple other things that is off the top of my head, like for example, Chase Young. That's been a conversation, and I think that's an important conversation to have on here because at the very least, I can tell you why it's a topic, and why it shouldn't be a topic at the same time. All right. See, look, there you go. There you go. He too early to call draft misses. Look at that. Like textbook. That's kind of the flat bottom line cliche thing to say. Either way, how you slice it, no matter how objective you want to be, while it's objective and it's important to say something like that. Come on. You know if a guy can or cannot play. Matter of fact, we're local. Brian Mitchell tells you all the time that he knew. Matter of fact, we have a live example, but Brian Mitchell tells people all the time about that quarterback that he knew after one OTA practice or one all-season practice that dude was not going to be good. And the old heads in the stream, y'all can tell me exactly who it was, but he knew that he wasn't going to be good. That didn't take a year. That took a practice. That took a practice. And then we have an example in real time. Emmanuel Forbes. He only played a year and a half. Was he a hit or a miss? Was he a hit or a miss? Or we're gonna give him about four or 5 more years. How we gonna do that? That's a real example. In real time, he was drafted last year. Was it last year? I mean, was it? Yeah, Heath Schuler. There you go. Drafted 2023. Yeah, so last year he was drafted last draft. Come on now. Real live examples. Jahan Dotson. Unfortunately, it took him a year to do the opposite. I thought the first year, he was becoming something, and then that boy regressed. Or maybe he just became stagnant. It didn't improve. Either way, let's get into it. All right. So we can go by. Let me pull up Spotrac. And pull up their free agency class to have beside me as I go through every angle of free agency. I mean, every angles of transactions. Where is the free agents? Oh, teams. I'm tripping. Commanders right here. The Commanders. Why is it doing that? Okay. Free agents. Let's go to 2024. Let's go to signed. Signed with. Can this website hurry up? Shouldn't take that long. All right. So while it's doing that, I think it's probably easier to start with the draft class anyway. 2024 Commanders draft class. And I honestly think there's 2 that pops up off the top of our head. and I think we can kind of talk about them. And shout out to Goat Lacia. I don't know if I think it's Goat Lacia or Goat Latia. I never really said her name out loud. Where is it? I bookmarked her tweet. I know I bookmarked it. I didn't just clear it, did I? Because she put up a good. I didn't save it. All right, so Goat Lacia, she did a thing where she was able to pull up. She was able to pull up the players who surrounded Johnny Newton at the time, or excuse me, the defensive tackles that surrounded Johnny Newton at the time that he was drafted by Washington. And I think that Johnny Newton has potential here. I don't classify him as a hit or a miss. I think Johnny Newton has potential here in Washington. But I think there's one thing to take into account for the decision that Adam Peters and company made by drafting Johnny Newton, right? So I can go to Chopper Dive's side because it's less filtered. Yeah, there you go. That's much easier. All right, so I'm gonna put this on the screen. I completely forgot about it. And let's share. It may be a little small. Yeah, how do I say her name? Latia. It's either Latia or Lacia, but I think I know. Given our ethnicity is, I think it's Latia. All right. So Johnny Newton drafted in the second round, 4th pick, right? And I said what I said about Johnny, but T'Vondre Sweat was drafted 2 picks after him, right? Now, I don't blame Washington and company for thinking John Allen and Daron Payne would be something in terms of their ability to play all 3 downs, to be three down defensive tackles, right? Of course, they're not going to play 100% of the snaps, but they're capable of playing all 3 downs, right? So 3 down defensive tackles. But you bring in Johnny Newton, who is under 300 pounds, right? Already undersized. So he's more of an explosive slashing type of or penetrating type of interior defensive lineman. But you see the problems in the run game. And she brought up a good point. Now, I said what I said about Johnny, but I look at T'Vondre, who was picked at 6, and you can't help but question or wonder if the run game was such a problem, right? T'Vondre is a person who you can plug in and fill that void. Now, I don't know how many snaps T'Vondre played with the Tennessee Titans related to like it. That's outside. All right. Like it's his like snap count per game. I'm about to actually look it up. Because I don't know like how much they used him. He played in all 17 games. Nose tackle, 23 years old. He is 366 pounds. Jesus Christ. He played 66% of the snaps defensively. For a person who's 366 pounds, that's a lot of snaps. That's not a number that you look at for a 350 plus pound defensive tackle and say he is only a 1 down player or a first 2 down player. It looked like he could play all 3 downs if you're playing 66% of the snaps. The reason why I feel like this is an important conversation to have, right, is understanding. Now, he wasn't like an impact player in terms of like what he can do from a sack perspective, rushing the passer. But if you need somebody who can stop the run, you would imagine that could be your focus in the draft, right? Now, maybe they thought Big Phil could do this. But you really, for Washington, and what bothers me with the run defensive part is like you got rid of all of the people who could have potentially helped you specifically in that aspect. Everybody knew who Big Phil was. Me, that was my superstar, right? But even if you didn't like Big Phil, you had the other dude who went to New Orleans, John Ridgeway. You got rid of him. You got rid of Big Phil. Two guys who were capable of stopping the run interior. And you really didn't do, like, I think they wanted versatility over anything. Because Johnny Newton, I mean, he's primarily going to be effective in the pass game. And again, penetrator. So, like, if he can make fast plays in the backfield, turns a tackle for losses, that's good for him. Sheldon Day, undersized, sometimes can make plays, but his effort is on 100. Can't ever deny his effort, right? Davis, I keep messing up his first name because I keep thinking of Carl Davis, but that's not his name. But Davis, you know, he's a guy that they signed him during the season, and they cut these draft picks or former players signed to the other regime who actually were somebody that was relied upon in the run game, and got rid of them. So that's why I bring up Johnny Newton, and I look at T'Vondre Sweat, and I'm like, at some point, if this was your plan all along to like move forward, or maybe you didn't know just yet exactly what you was going to do with some of these guys, I feel like as much as people love Johnny Newton, why go for him when you have even more questions at the defensive line? I think there's still more questions here at the defensive line. And eventually, if maybe we get into it, we'll talk about why Chase Young is a topic today. We can kind of further dive into why they need more help. Now, people look at another thing with T'Vondre Sweat, right? And just using him as an example, since we're talking about him, I'm going to go ahead and get out of this. Bottom line, let's kind of close the book on Johnny Newton. I don't think he was a hit. I don't think he was a miss. I think he has potential. But we got to keep seeing like how he can develop as a two-way player. Okay. But people look at this defensive line and they say, we just need that 350-pounder who can take up space. And I think that's kind of the blanket statement, but you need somebody who's very capable of doing a lot from a technical stand. I mean, of course, you don't want to get technical with everything, like in these football conversations, but you really need somebody who understands how to play the run. Like, truly, you could be 350 pounders and just be there, be desired because of your frame. There's plenty of bigs who ain't that good against the run. And just because you take up space, you get more attention because you're bigger, but that don't mean you're like actually making plays. And making plays don't mean like penetrating or splitting double teams. Making plays can mean like literally holding up, stalemating a double team. Truly winning one-on-ones if they mess up. Like being explosive for your size. I'm not just going off of somebody who's like 350 pounds. I need somebody on the interior who like Washington's going to actually take serious in terms of like we need his a defensive lineman with this type of size, right? Whatever type of size they identify. And I also need that player who's identified for their type of size to be able to hold up against double teams. Be like functional strength needs to be some of the best out there. And I can't allow John Allen and Daron Payne to look at this guy and think that they're better than him. Right? If they're even on the roster, and that's exactly why we're talking about them too. Like I need John and Daron to look at this guy like, damn, like, hey, he got it, and I need to get like him. I need to learn from him because what was they doing last year? So yeah, that's kind of where I was at, and that's why I pointed out T'Vondre Sweat specifically, is because while I think Johnny is somebody that you can work with for the future, I also look at these guys from the interior standpoint. It's like if you got rid of all your run defense guys, what exactly was the true plan here? Because John and Daron, if you relied on them and maybe they surprised you in the worst way, then I can accept that. But if you looked at them and you had questions about their ability to defend the run, then we shouldn't have gotten rid of John Ridgeway and or Phil Mathis. That's kind of where I'm at, bro. So from that's kind of where I'm at. Let's kind of move forward. I'm gonna read the comments right quick and go to another specific section. Where's my guy? Okay. Mike Sanderstill hit. We ain't got to wait a year and a half, 2 years to say that, right? That's a hit. Jaden Davis, of course. Oh my Lord. Jaden Daniels, of course, first round pick. That's a hit. No need to say that 1,000 times and explain that. Ben Sinnott, second round pick, 53rd overall. That's where we'll pause and I'll catch up with the chat. I prefer a GM who is stellar in free agency than the draft. Al2 says people judge their GMs by draft, but free agency is much more important. Hit JD5, Mikey, T.C., Newton, Sinnott, Coleman, Baptiste, Miss McCaffrey, McGee, Hampton. I don't know. To be frank, Quinn's defenses had issues with the run game, specifically because he wants Newton type of undersized, twitchy defensive tackles. That's another part of like the mystery. I said this in the post-game show, the post-game recap, out to like I asked the question because I looked at that game and what stood out to me was obviously the size difference from Philly offensive line to Washington, but also like the true fashion in which they weren't able to stop the run. And I got flashbacks to Dallas. Me personally, I love a good offense, but I'm a defensive player at heart. Like, and I'm not. This isn't like a who do I prefer. Like, I take a really good offense and wouldn't trade it for the world. But what hurts me, it's not about y'all. What hurts me is like seeing a defense that can't stop a nosebleed, but also like seeing death by 1,000 paper cuts defensively. Like if you can't get a stop, bro, like that drives me crazy. It drives me crazy, bro. And that stuff hurts. And when I see how they performed in that championship game, which is not unfamiliar territory, right? It's not familiar territory. It's just the biggest stage of the game, of the season. I wonder exactly what their plan is moving forward because Dan Quinn, while they did in his career as a DC in Dallas address defensive linemen, they never truly got the bigs up front that addresses like specifically the run game. And this is to be determined, bro. But if they get that type of front, like if they get that type of front that's emulated from like their times in Dallas, bro, that's gonna hurt me. That's gonna hurt me, bro. My opinion, the alignment of the front didn't allow for them to stop the run. I'm gonna let you talk, Jay Tizzy. I think it's personnel. I think it's personnel more than anything. But I hear you. It wasn't a question at the time. at draft time. We didn't realize we couldn't stop the run until well into the season. Do you think we're going to re-sign Allen? What's up, Jason? Good morning. We're going to talk about that. So that's why they went for the explosive 3-tech in Newton. We already had 2 first-round DTs. Yeah, that's why I was like, I feel like their plan was to like have that assumption that John and Daron is probably what it was. But see, that's my thing. Like, you still had Big Phil and you still had John Ridgeway at some point. And you eventually kept neither. John Allen has no guaranteed money this year, so is he out? What's up, Alex? Good morning. Jarrell, I see you. Good morning. I think, but see, that's what I'm saying out too. I'm gonna get back to Alex's question. But yeah, like that's my thing. They made decisions. But John, you can easily restructure, give him some more money. So there's no saying what their plan is with him just yet. I don't know exactly what it is, but for example, like Terry McLaurin, he ain't really got no money on his contract, or he's on the last year of his deal. It's either both, if not one or the other. But he's on the last year of his deal coming up, 2025. That he need more money too, and he need an extension. I feel you on that more, but with Adam Peters coming from San Fran, he can build a line to stop the run. He can. I ain't saying I don't believe it. I need somebody like this is a big off season for Adam Peters. I think these first 2 seasons, honestly, I think the first 3 seasons, because there's gonna be just as much turnover as it was last year. There's gonna be just a high degree of turnover this year too. Like, I don't know if it's gonna meet the 30+ numbers, but it's gonna be some turnover this season. And people gotta be prepared for that. There's no guarantee. There's no guarantee that Jeremy Chin, I'm throwing out a name. There's no guarantee that Jeremy Chin stays in Washington. That's how good of a season he had. He may get a better deal elsewhere. Now, I think that there's a good sign for Chin in Washington, specifically given that Chin chose Washington last year, sought out Washington, knowing the type of role that he'd play here. Like, I think he proved himself a lot here, and maybe he feels good about the future with Quinn and Witt, given his experience in 2024, and that may play well for Washington trying to re-sign Jeremy Chin. I am for that. I would love to have some continuity between Chin and Quan. But the turnover part, right? The roster turnover, there's no guarantee he comes back. So if he, like, assuming he stays, like, that's going to be hard to do because he may mess around and leave, and now you add another hole because who's going to come in and replace Jeremy Chin that's on this roster right now? Like, people look at Derek Forrest, but now that you've seen Jeremy Chin for 17 games, are you confident that Derek Forrest can do exactly what Jeremy Chin can? Like, you saw him play post and make plays as a post safety. You saw him play in the box. You saw him cover from the slot. Derek did some of that. He won some shit, but he ain't make as many plays as Chin had, in my opinion. So I just think personally, I think the turnover is going to be a lot, and I need to see from Adam Peters his ability to build up a defense. Like, I can't just, like, I know what he's capable of. I'm not ignorant to it. I'm not naive to it. I just need to see it on this team. I need to see that. I'm not about to just say, hey, man, I trust you completely. Take everything. Everything that you make is going to be golden. Because I'm getting to the next player in the draft class that I think is a TBD, but I'm leaning on the side of miss. Ben Sinnott. He definitely ain't a hit, but I would love to see what's next in Ben Sinnott's transition to an NFL player. Like, what does his year 2 look like? And I look at tight ends now. I don't think that I truly don't think that, like, for Ben Sinnott, you can write him off after year year one. That's why I say TBD specifically for him. Let me go ahead and get off that. I don't think that Ben is a true miss, right? I'm not going to even like go towards breaking down this game. That's kind of besides the point of this at this current juncture. But I look at Ben and I look at Zach Ertz. Like they acknowledged towards the end of the season what Zach Ertz was supposed to be for this offense. Zach Ertz was just supposed to be red zone. Like that was their intention coming into the season. And when they showed he can hoop, or when he showed that he can really hoop at 33 years old, however old he is, changed their entire approach with how Zach Ertz is. It's the reason why people are looking at this tight end position right now, and they are asking the question, where are they going to get some more juice this offseason? Because we need somebody who can complement Zach Ertz. Ben doesn't necessarily have that juice as a route runner. He's a utility guy, and I think that's good. I think you can use him. He can have a definitely a hell of an impact in terms of the role that he's currently playing in. That's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's nothing wrong with the role that he's in. But to my point, and where I'm saying him being drafted second round, 53rd overall, is he a hit or is he a miss? He's a TBD, but leaning on the side of a miss. I think specifically he was drafted a little too high. I felt like that at the time. I had my questions. We had Jordan Reed on from ESPN last year who thought that he was the talk of the town, and he was. Ben Sinnott was a person who athletically hit all the marks that these scouts were looking for, these professional scouts were looking for. I looked at his tape and I had questions. I was so surprised that Jordan Reed was so because think about it, bro. Think about it like this. Put this into perspective. If the conversation surrounding, why is nobody, because during the season, or maybe even in preseason, people always say Ben Sinnott showing off this draft player showing off exactly what I felt scouts loved during the draft process, XYZ. All of those kind of I told you so moments. I do it. There's nothing wrong with it. But during the season, right? Why was there no conversation? Like Ben Sinnott just fell off the face of the earth. That doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. I'm just trying to put things in perspective for people. Like, if he was this type of guy, right? Mike Sanders still had those conversations. People had those conversations about Mike during the season. Like, they always go about to what Nick Saban says. They talk about some of the things his coaches says. Jaden Daniels, same thing. All right. Brandon Coleman at one point. I mean, before he started playing too many snaps and exposed some of his flaws. But people talking about him. I just think for Ben, man, there's a reason why people are having this conversation at tight end, saying that they need somebody to complement Zach Ertz, especially because of his age at this point. He's really good. I would love to have Zach Ertz back. I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm perfectly fine with the exact same role that he was in 2024, playing at in 2025. But get that man some help so we can have a more legitimate threat at tight end in terms of their ability to run after the catch and make plays as a ball carrier. Ben Sinnott, while I think that he is a powerful runner, I don't see much of a threat as a route runner. So yeah, bro. He's a utility guy for me. Let's pause there and let's catch up with some of the comments. We traded Ridgeway before the season. Y'all got to. That's my Tizzy. That's my point. Like, that's not forgotten. That's literally my point. You got rid of Ridgeway. You got rid of Ridgeway. You got rid of Phil Mathis. Like, those are your two run stoppers. And not only did you get rid of Ridgeway before the season, you got rid of him around the time that you're making your final 53. It wasn't like they got rid of him in fucking June or July. They got rid of him right before the season started. They had to choose between Ridgeway and Mathis. So it's not like they just got rid of, like, they got rid of him well before the season started. They had to make a decision. They could have honestly kept both. If they could have kept both, it would have cost them other positions, but they could have kept both. Anyway, I didn't realize I was so far up. So let me scroll down a little bit. When do we start to look at draft target? The Senior Bowl is happening this weekend. Yes, and so was the Shrine Bowl last night, Thursday night. I mean, we're getting into it. I mean, free agency is up first. So there's a lot of time going on. Senior Bowl is happening right now. We can probably get a draft guy on just to talk about, what they saw this weekend. But it's a lot of time now. What is it? It's about to be February tomorrow. We still got 2.5 more months until the draft. It's gonna be grind time, but it is what it is. I don't mind keeping Chin, but we need another deep safety who can actually ball hog. I mean, that's what you got Quan for. Quan plays the post. And I think, personally speaking, I think Quan, even if you don't like Quan, he's a stopgap player. Like, he's good enough to where, like, he can play, he can start, and he can have an impact on your defense, whether it's continuity or just knowing exactly what Joe Witt Jr. wants. I mean, and then you got Percy Butler too. Again, stopgap. He plays his small role to the best of his abilities. And he doesn't necessarily impact in terms of the defense a negative way. Like, when he's on the field, he has his role carved out for him. He executes it. I don't think the safeties. That's why I think, like, if you lose Jeremy Chin, you're gonna have a problem. I think you got to look at center like Trey McBride. Hell no. Trey McBride is 5 times better than Ben Center. Hell no, I ain't looking at him like Trey McBride. Trey McBride provides so much more as a tight end, as a complete tight end. Yeah, and I think that's going to kill him. Jay Tizzy says Senate is a project. They drafted athletic traits with him. Well, if he's a project, draft his ass in the 5th round. JD5 didn't use any of the rookies. I don't know. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm a little confused. It felt like we didn't see Senate until he caught a pass on the punt in the last game. That's another thing. Like, and Alex, I know what you're saying, but we also know that he played. That's exactly part of the. We didn't really see Ben until he caught the punt, because that was his one, like, big moment. But he played. He played all season. We need a vertical tight end. I agree. I mean, you need a vertical tight end, but you need a tight end who can really make plays after the catch. Like somebody who can really create at tight end. I think Luke and Senna need more reps to build that chemistry and develop NFL consistency. Need Jay Reed on it to defend himself. Man, maybe if he comes back, we can ask him about how that situation turned out. Like, what's up with your boy, bro? I mean, but honestly, at that point, sometimes people get sensitive about that too. So I might try to slide in a Ben Sinnott question, be like, hey man, people thought that Ben Sinnott was gonna be the tight end of the future here in Washington, but now we're over here talking about more tight ends. What do you think about this draft class? I'm gonna see if he remembers what he says. I'm gonna just throw that. That's a subtle way of saying it. I see people talking about Kyle Pitts. I mean, what makes people think that Kyle Pitts is going anywhere? Is he a free agent or something? Let me check. And why is the free? Thank you, bro. All right, hold on. 2025. Let's go to tight ends. Yeah, Kyle Pitts ain't even no free agent. What are we talking about? Who in the hell is it? Mercedes Lewis? Oh my lord. Yeah, what are we talking about? Kyle Pitts not even a free agent. All right. Let's keep going. Brandon Coleman. I'm sorry. Brandon Coleman's up next. Coleman. I think he's a hit, honestly. At this point, I think it's going to be Washington's job to figure out where you're going to place him. Is he going to stay out at left tackle, or is he going to get moved to right tackle, or is he going to get moved to guard? You know what hurts Washington is Sam Cosmi being hurt in the divisional round. I don't know. I mean, and also you're losing Trent Scott and Cornelius Lucas, who are your swing guys, right? And what hurts Washington losing Sam Cosmi, I mean, offensive line is going to be a big focus this offseason. A big focus. And you need to figure out how you're going to show up this offensive line. You need somebody who's going to be able to, you need a couple people who's going to be able to move defenders off the ball, bro. Like drive them, win their one-on-ones, bro. It's so frustrating watching this offensive line. And knowing that they early on in the season, they can create space. They can move, like schematically, they can create these gaps for these running backs to go through. But in true one-on-ones, there isn't really no domination. And like more times than not in one-on-ones, these guys are struggling. Double teams cool. Schemed up runs, like selling off gaps for running backs, getting out in space, cool. But winning the one-on-ones when you truly got to get a yard or two, bro, and not getting blown up in the backfield with the running backs, I think they need some help. So what does that mean? Brandon Coleman, I think he's a hit. You got to figure out where you're going to put him. Sam Cosmi injury hurts Washington from the standpoint of like, how do you scheme for like Nick Allegretti? Let me backtrack a little bit. Brandon Coleman played all 5 positions on the offensive line at one point. And I think that benefits Washington because if you're going to move him to guard, you can put him at right guard until Sam Cosmi comes back. And Nick Allegretti on the left side. Or Andrew Wiley move inside. If Andrew Wiley ends up staying here in Washington. But I think for Brandon Coleman, because we can go into the offensive line in a specific episode. We can do that. But I think Brandon Coleman himself, I figure he's a hit. You got to figure out where to put him though. If you're going to stick at the left side, he needs to have an offseason to remember. Like this offseason needs to be something that they sell for centuries to come. Like, man, hey, bro, I had all these question marks about Coleman coming into his second season after the first year he played. Like, I thought that he needed to be interior move to the right side the way he was playing. You know, he always like that speed, always good more on the edge. His technique was consistently inconsistent, crosses his feet too much, unable to get out there. He's bending at the waist when he's getting beat, stops his feet sometimes when he gets engaged. And all of a sudden, that year too, I don't know what he did in that offseason, but that boy became Trent Williams. He ain't really going to become Trent Williams, but you get what I'm saying. Like, he became this dog after his first year. He took that all season serious. Like, I need that type of all season from Brandon Coleman. But nevertheless, I think he's a hit. You just got to figure out where you're going to put him. Another guy, as we move forward. Let me catch up with y'all. Y'all talking about Kyle Pitts. Yeah, like I don't get that. Look, I only did that. I only did that because that's all we know in Washington. I ain't comparing them. But oh, Kevin, my bad. I missed a couple. It's crazy how much playoffs boil down to one-on-one matchups across the board. EL. And if it wasn't for Jaden Daniels, we weren't really running the football. I don't even count. Like I mean, I gave credit to Brian Robinson in that game against the Detroit Lions, but I really like from a grand scheme of things, the Detroit Lions, that was a shell of themselves defensively. And again, I don't apologize for the win. But to my point, the only offense and rushing game that Washington had this postseason was Jaden Daniels. Surprise, surprise. He was the running game down the stretch of the regular season. Okay. Oh, my bad. One more. Coleman can play. We need a better left guard next to him. Y'all don't know, bro. No, I'm with you with the Coleman can play. I just don't know if he's gonna be like. I don't know if he's gonna be left tackle. I'm not. I think that's honestly up in the air. But here's the thing that people forget. I do think like these guys meant what they said. They viewed him as a left tackle. That's what they said when they drafted him. So if they mean what they say, like generally speaking, and they showed it through their actions so far, that is something to consider. I don't think that they'll be moving Brandon Coleman. He may mess around be a left tackle. And to that conversation, I do think they can upgrade a left guard. And that's kind of part of the conversation. You need to upgrade that offensive line. You can upgrade a left guard, you can upgrade at the right tackle. But those two positions is not going to be the only ones now because Sam Cosmi got hurt. So you got to figure out what you're going to do there. Luke McCaffrey. And I think we can pause there because I'm going to pause after Luke because Jordan McGee, he was hurt. I don't know what his future here is in Washington in terms of like his role. I know he was on the field. I know he had snaps like during the time, between the times he got hurt. Like there's no question about that. But I don't know what his future is given the amount of injuries he sustained this year and the extent in which he was gone, like the amount of time that he missed. I don't even know if I can trust him to be on the field at this point. And I don't think that's a wrong way to feel. I think it's like we just got to figure out what's up with Jordan. So he's a TBD. Dominique Hampton, TBD. 5th round pick. Javonte Jean-Baptiste. He's a guy that I actually did like. And he's a TBD on the lean side of hit. Opposite of Ben Sinnott. I think he's a TBD, but on I lean towards the side of him or them hitting on JJB. All right, Luke McCaffrey, last conversation of the draft. Yeah, I don't like this one. And I am a fan of his traits. That's the crazy thing. Tough as nails, competitive at the catch point. Like he is fearless. He's fearless, bro. And I can't help but love the competitive aspect of Luke. He's still young as a receiver, but again, similar to Ben, I think they took these two people in particular for what they can be. But look at where they took them. They took Luke 3rd round, pretty high. And they took Ben extremely high. And I think what people just can't be naive about, we said for years, and it's true, it's not a lie. We said for years how your top end draft picks nowadays should be contributing to your team. Now, I want to acknowledge Luke McCaffrey. If some things went in his favor early in the season, in terms of like the progressions, Luke could probably have way more, a way better statistical season than what he had, right? But his snap percentage decreased for a reason. And I was on that. I was on that during that 3-game losing streak stretch. I'm trying to figure out, like, why is his snap count decreasing? And Noah Brown got hurt. Why is he not playing as much? It started that Thursday night game in Philly where like he probably played less than 20% of the snaps. Something like that. And I'm glad that he found a role as a kick returner. I think that looks good for Luke. I'm not lying. Like I love Luke back there. And again, because he's like a very straight. I don't think that's the right word to say, but I was gonna say it's like straightforward runner, like no nonsense. He gets the yards that's in front of him. He runs hard. Again, fearless. I think that's Luke. It's unfortunate that he looked a little nervous in that championship game. It's not wrong with that. You'd be nervous, but like don't show it. Like he bobbled the ball on the kickoff. But I like Luke back there. But as a receiver, I think I would need to know what's around the receivers that was. Let me actually look. Wide receiver draft class 2024 list. Let's see if we can see where they was drafted. All right, so Luke McCaffrey. Wow. Okay, so Luke McCaffrey was the 16th receiver off the board, and there wasn't another receiver picked until the 4th round. That was Troy Franklin of Oregon. He was picked at 102. So Luke McCaffrey was at the end of the third. I said early 3rd. I was wrong. I don't know why. My math wasn't computing. But Luke McCaffrey ended the 3rd round. Troy Franklin was selected 4th round, 2 picks later by the Denver Broncos. I'm looking at the people behind him. It ain't nobody that really stands out. Troy Franklin, let's see what his numbers was as a rookie. Now, I don't want to get into like a numbers comparison, but more so just the idea of because I know Troy in terms of like his contribution to the Denver Broncos offense. He didn't do too much either, but he had 53 targets. 53 targets and 21 years old. He's played 37% of the snaps. That's a healthy number. And I think that's probably a little bit higher than Luke McCaffrey. I'm checking right now for Luke's side. Luke played 36. Yeah, I'm about to say that's a healthy number right there. Both of them playing that amount of snaps. Yeah. So Troy played 37, Luke 36. Yeah, I just think, and I'm not saying that Washington should have grabbed Troy because if I look at that class, everybody after Luke, it's a crapshoot essentially. So maybe you grab Luke and take a chance on him, but okay, I guess that's just probably the way that I can accept this. And maybe Luke may have not been their guy if a couple people before him made it to Washington. Jalen McMillan was picked right before him, and Roman Wilson was picked right before him. Specifically, let me kind of rephrase it: Jermaine Burton, Roman Wilson, Jalen McMillan. Those were the 3 receivers selected right before Luke. all in the third round. So maybe Washington actually did have an eye on a receiver that it may have not been Luke, but because the way the draft went, they decided to grab one of their guys. So it is what it is. I think that it was I think that this one was a miss. And I'm okay to be proven wrong. And I accept, after looking at this, I accept, like, the way the draft turned out, that if they found a receiver or if they wanted a receiver, that's the route that they chose. But I do think that this receiving group, like, you're only left with Terry, contract wise, left with Terry and Luke. And it really just means you're left with Terry at this point. Luke is going to have one of them Brandon Coleman off seasons. Like, boy, what did you do? What did you do this offseason, bro? Because you, boy, out here looking like Santana Moss. I know Al2 ain't going to like that. Santana ain't going to like that, if you heard that. But okay. Let's go ahead and get to Marshawn Lattimore. Yes, Senate was a second-round pick. Nah, it started going down before that. I talked about it. The Thursday night game, when they in that 3-game losing streak. And that's the thing. I don't know exactly what, because Noah Brown was gone. De'Ami Brown even went out for a stretch, and Luke still wasn't playing. All right. Yeah, I see it the same. Some people's bodies just can't hold up at the pro level. It's not ideal to see a trend of injuries in the rookie season. Luke was a miss, bro. Had all the opportunity. Oh, and that's kind of what I want to touch on. Like, he had opportunities early in the season. I think things would have been a little different. I think about the the Steelers game where he was butt naked, went off the line, running that over route, and Jaden Daniels overthrew him. Like, that one could have changed the trajectory of how his rookie season went in terms of, like, getting more opportunities. So it sucks for him. It's like a hit and miss. You really gotta have that opportunity as well as, like, do your job. But, like, seeing how seeing how the draft turned out from a receiver perspective, I'm not mad at them selecting him. They took a shot. I think players to watch is Hampton. He changed position from safety to linebacker, has overshown type of upside. Luke starts. Okay, we talked about that. You're being kind of calling that a bobble. Jameson Crowder, much more reliable route runner. I do agree that Jameson Crowder was much like Jameson. Like, he showed you what a vet looked like. He does that shit. I think Senate and Luke got drafted where they did because we didn't have a 4th-round pick. Probably didn't think Senate would make it to the end of the 3rd, and didn't think Luke would make it to the 5th. Maybe. I told you, I too ain't gonna like that. See, you think I'm comparing them? I'm just saying, bro. He came out looking like a dog. All right, let's get into Marshawn, and then we can close out with John and Daron. I gotta get up out of here. I appreciate everybody who's tapping in live. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Welcome in. Shout out to all the morning trappers. Everybody in the chat. I see you, Jay Tizzy, out to Terrell, Alex, Kyle. JB. I'm looking at Kyle Pitts. JB, what's up? Good morning. Good morning. Marshawn Lattimore. I don't know how y'all feel about him. Another cliche that bothers me. I think when we get to learn things, some people just kind of regurgitate them. And that's not everybody. But, for years, similar to people saying, like, if you're in the 3rd round, or like those 3rd, 4th-round picks, 2nd-round picks, like, you ain't afforded the luxury anymore to sit, and you got to play, and they expect y'all to be impact players. Like, that's a cliche that I think about that bothers me. While it's mostly true, I think is kind of blanketed nowadays. Another thing that's blanketed nowadays is saying cornerbacks don't play well if they front 7 ain't eating. Again, mostly true. That is not my point. But like, it don't apply to every cornerback. They said that for Emmanuel Forbes. I'm not lying. People on this show have said that about Emmanuel Forbes too. He needs a better front rush. And he can play better in coverage. But I think for Marshawn, you have to look at how he moved. And you can ask a question, moved athletically. And you can ask the question, like, what exactly do we have in Marshawn moving forward? Like, are you concerned? Or do you think that it's just a moment in which he just needs some time to rehab, get better, health-wise, and come back and attack this all season? And come back and looking like Champ Bailey. They'd be like, man, what the hell you did this all season, bro? What did you get into? Man, out here looking like a prime Champ Bailey for the Skins. How that work out too? Did that hurt? Or was that accurate? So I think Marshawn, man, I love the idea of him being in Washington. I am very much willing to give him more time. So I'm not going to say he's a miss, but here's what I will say, and that you cannot deny. Bruh, the dude accumulated how many penalties in what? 1, 2, 3 Saints, half an Eagles game. 1, 2, 3. In 4.5 games, how many penalties did it accumulate? It's insane. That's not good. That's a detrimental player. Bruh, his penalty rate was probably higher than Ben St-Juste. I'm not lying. His penalty rate in Washington was probably higher than Ben St-Juste's. He probably had a high penalty rate. And that type of stuff is scary. Because you drafted him to be a shutdown corner, make plays on the perimeter on an island. Right? You can trust him. You can move your coverage and or he can help dictate your coverage to other areas that needs help. And he over here PIing, holding. He already had a personal foul penalty in the championship game. Like that type of stuff is scary, bro. And I think anybody who asks a question about the like what Marshawn is for Washington in the future are well in their right of asking. Adam Peters would tell you, and he said it in his pressure, that it hurts Marshawn to come here, having to rehab, be away from his team, having to learn the defense after he's done rehabbing and getting better with the hamstring, and having to like be all on the same page with everybody. Well, bro, you traded for a player who has such an extensive injury history with his lower body. It's what he does. I ain't throwing that excuse out in no pressure. Now, I get you got to give an answer. But I just think that, you know, that's his history. So anybody is well within their right to ask. I think that Marshawn is a TBD for me, but he's a guy that I lean on the side of hitting. And I know that goes against kind of my track record on the show so far. But I just have a hard bro, it can't be as like it wasn't nothing good that came out of the trades in 2024. Just being honest. So it can't be as bad in 2025 as it was in 2024, right? So I lean on the side, bro, please prove me right. like team, please prove me right. It can't be as bad as it was in 2024. And I'm not saying it was terrible, but it just can't be as bad as it was at 2024 as it in 2025 moving forward. So like I just think that for Washington, if Peter says he needs an off season where he's fully healthy, okay, cool. I hope so. I hope it works. And I hope to God that you get at least 12 games out of Marshawn in 2025. Give me 12 games. Nah, give me like 13 games. Give me 13 games, bro. That's all I need. That's all we need. 13 games in the regular season. And let me get a full postseason from you. Come on. Is that too hard to ask for? Those flags killed us. Yes, 100%. Oh, my bad. The flags killed us. Yes, 100%. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. He needs a full off season. He's about to get his rhythm back. But bro can be a difference maker if ifs and buts was candy and nuts, pause. That's a saying out here in the United States, out too. I actually don't know the rest of the saying. I ain't gonna lie to you. If he can keep his health, I mean, sure, maybe. But like, did he look the same when he was running, like from a fluidity standpoint? I'm not saying he did or didn't. I'm asking the question, like, how good did he look when he was running? You know, like that first game in Tampa, people was asking the question about his fluidity athletically. Ask that question. That's a real question. I mean, I got my opinion, but I ain't about to sit here and keep. I'm really not trying to like dump on Marshawn. I'm genuinely not, because I think that he can really be a difference maker for this team. But there's so many questions surrounding his ability from a health standpoint and from an athletic standpoint that I can't give you a finite, like, definitive answer. Can't do it. And I'm not gonna say if he can, if all he can do is if only he can. I ain't gonna do that. And I'm not gonna say the defensive line needs to help him out. I think that's obvious. But there's some players in the secondary who played really good, despite the idea of the defensive line not being helping out the back end. Like, if that's the narrative that people want to spin, like, plenty of people who benefited in the secondary. A rookie did. Mike Sainristil benefited. Noah Ebgenogany, solid slot guy for a year. I don't think he needs to start moving forward, but solid slot guy for a year. Quan Martin, Jeremy Chin. Like, those are real live examples of people who played behind this defensive front. Still made plays. Again, early, only like 4.5 games for Marshawn. He's under contract for at least 2 more years. Let's see how it goes. A lot of you said T. Higgins, track records are there, injuries for reasons. Track records are there for a reason. Injuries accumulate. Yes. Let me start at, because Kevin Walsh is on point, and that is exactly my point, Kev. Track records are there for a reason, and the boy Adam Peters took him, traded for him, and then in his his end of season wrap up says injuries hurt him. He was injured when you traded for him. Yeah, sure. It needs to be way improved next year. We need a good plan for Marshawn health wise. I thought he looked bad against the Bucks, but much better versus Philly and Detroit. Detroit, sure. Philly. But him being super physical and holding blatantly on AJ just through true rest restriction. Also, when Russ got the eye on you, you can't give me away with stuff. You got to play smarter when you're in reputation with the Zebras. I'm with you. All right, so I'm going to be quick on my opinion with John and Daron. But I do want to hear y'all from the chat. I like how John I like how John came out of that post. Let me restart. I'm impressed with John Allen's resurgence in the postseason. Very impressed. And while, he's one of those guys you look at and you say, this is like, he needs to be playing like this all the time. Like, because you look at his contract and you say things like that, right? Fair. I like how he played. But similar to De'Ami Brown, and we'll get into a conversation about him moving forward. Similar to De'Ami Brown, I think a postseason stretch shouldn't guarantee you a spot on the team in 2025. So I look at both Daron and John, and I say either one of them can be up for grabs moving forward. I think you look at this interior defensive line for 2-3 years in a row. And honestly, this defensive line, as far back, like, honestly, answer this question. When is the last time that you can defend? And I'm not going to look it up. I don't know the answer. And y'all can tell me. I'll listen to you all. Or I'll read your responses. I don't know if I'll agree. When is the last time you can look at this defensive front and say, yeah, they were some dogs against the run. They were some dogs in the trenches. Couldn't run on them. Or they struggled. Or they was above average. Say that. Let's even do above average. It's a long time. And you had some studs up front. And I look at John and Daron, and I don't see impact players. Like, they had their moments throughout the years. Like, they had seasons where they was really on fire. And John Allen, like, really had a couple seasons where he was like teach tape. But I just don't think neither one of them command the amount of attention. Like, you can win one-on-one against these guys, bro. And I'm not trying to disrespect them. Like, I think athletically and like from a skill set standpoint, I said this going into. It's crazy how Eagles fans tried to spin it in the comments after the game was over. I clipped a segment out of our morning show last week saying that this game, the championship game, and it turned out to be true. Even though Daron Payne got hurt, so he didn't play. But the championship game was made for John and Daron, bro. Like, that was those two in particular were people you look at and say, all right, man, if there was any time we ever needed y'all, this game is it. We need every ounce of effort, intensity that y'all have. And we need y'all to step the hell up. Really make an imprint on this game. Again, Daron Payne got hurt. That was before we knew his injury status. And then John Allen he was out there. I haven't looked at the tape yet. I am going to look at that tape. Even as painful as it is, I'm going to look at that tape. But yeah, like, it was the game that was made for them. And I just think for Washington, there's been too many times with both of them on the field, you look at these guys and you're saying, yeah, like, you really need more out of these guys, bro. And you ain't getting that. And it's wild. Like, again, Daron Payne is quick. He has the athleticism. It's the reason why he's playing out on the edge sometimes, 5 tech, 7 tech out there outside the tight end, like head up on the tight end. In those moments sometimes. And he's athletically capable of doing things like that. And he can set the edge. He's quick enough to win inside. He has that initial move that can, that he can win with. And John Allen, he's a dog in terms of his technical abilities, hand usage as a pass rusher. Like, they have strengths. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But you're not making an impact on the game. And that's just unfortunate. And when I think about it like that, I don't think this is going to happen realistically. I think Washington will keep one. But if they really wanted a full reset, because like, look, think about it again. Not to keep bringing up Big Phil and John Ridgeway, but if you make that decision, and then you look at all of these guys throughout the season that you signed to either your practice squad or brought them to the active roster on the defensive line, what is stopping you from having a clean slate up front? Literally, outside of the guys who's contractually here for beyond 2024, what is stopping you from having a clean slate? That means you're going into 2025 with Dorrance Armstrong, Johnny Newton, and technically Daron and John. But I'm saying, like, make some moves, get them out of here. Like, somebody can use them. They not scrubs. They not some shit, but I'm sure they can be used. I say I'm sure. Like, that's even disrespectful. They can be used. They got value. Around the league, somebody's gonna pick them up. So, me personally, I think their window has been around long enough to really like cement themselves like legitimately as an Alabama wall. The name was cute. They did not live up to it. And that's just the God's honest truth. And I don't think they're terrible players. I think when the money came in and you expected them to do X, Y, Z, right? They never lived up to it. And, you know, when it's hard to live up to the money, like, especially off rip, when people start having those questions, it's hard to turn things around. And the more chances that you get from the team that paid you, like, the more resentment builds in the fan base, unless they see a tremendous turnaround. The more resentment that builds in the fan base, and from a team standpoint, the more time it takes, or the more time is allowed for your value to go down. So I think decisions need to be made this offseason. Does that mean both goes? I don't know. But I think one or the other has to go, if not both. I am all for a clean slate. Only keeping Johnny Newton, only keeping Dorrance Armstrong. And retooling. That's how big of an all season this is, bro. Like, you're talking about questions like that. We got a lot to discuss with AJ and Dre in terms of like the true nature of this all season. I said there's going to be a lot of turnover to start the show. I think like it's going to be just as similar as, or just as high as the 2024 all season in terms of the amount of turnover that exists. Like, these guys going to have to do some work. So you may mess around, re-sign Dante Fowler, but he should not be your starter. He should not be out there outside of third down. Even on third down, like, bro, he was a complete ghost in the playoffs. In terms of pass rusher, he made some plays in the run game. I'll never take that away from him. But yeah, let me pause there. Let me catch up with everybody. I don't know what happened to Daron, man. And honestly, like, I don't even know if that's a fair question, because he had one season. Racked up 11.5 sacks, cooking. No ifs, ands. Like, he was cooking. Contract year. But outside of that, like, the same questions that we have now existed before that year where he was cooking. Cody says both need to go. Payne too. Good morning, Cody. What's up, player? Good morning to all the morning trappers. We overpaid for good, not great. Paying too much money for them not to be performing at an all-pro level. Agreed. Too much cap. Oh, there you go. Too much cap tied in DT. That needs to be addressed this all season. Although I think they'll both need to move on. I would be surprised if they will. I don't think either value is high enough to trade. I mean, so here's my thing, Kev. Like, it depends on what you look at as high. You know how I view high? If you can get John Allen or Daron Payne for third-round picks, that's good value for me. And I'm not saying a single third. It depends. Like, can you get them for a high third? Like 80-something, 90, like low 90s? Wait, 30, 60? Oh, no. So, see, I'm doing that math again. Like early third, like 70s. I think mid is 80-something. So, like, can you get them for like a 70-something? Can you get multiple draft picks? I don't need no first for John or Daron. I don't need the first for either one of them. A second or a third would do. Just depends on where they are. I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't need, like I said, I don't need first round picks for these guys. I don't need second round picks for these guys. Like, it'll help. Like, find a way to move on, bro. Get draft picks, more draft picks, the better. Just get them out, get them off your roster, have a reset. But yeah, I think that's why I was like, if I had to really choose, I think I lean one of them is staying. If both of them stay, we're in trouble. I'm not even joking. We in trouble. Because they're gonna run them both back out there. We're gonna have the same issues. Benz, what's up, Benz? Good morning. I agree that we're going to have another roster turnaround similar to last year. Hence why the blown opportunity NFC championship game sucks so much, because we have no idea what the roster looked like. Let me start at, because I'm with you, Benz, 1,000%. I agree. Day 2 picks being high enough to trade 94, 93. DN needs to be addressed this offseason for sure. Lots of big names are rumored to be available, and we'll talk about them. I even got alternative options on deck for me. For defensive tackle, interior defensive line. I got him. Tier Tart, that's a dog. He a dog. We ran into him against Tennessee. Look up that game. Washington, Carson Wentz started against Tennessee, the home game. Carson Wentz threw the pick at the goal line, lost the game. Look up that game and watch Tier Tart. That's when I got introduced to him. I've been following him ever since. What up, Paul? Good morning. Good morning to all the morning trappers. Like I said, I got to get up out of here, though. Appreciate everybody who watched live. If you want to run the replay back, do that. Hits and misses of 2024, Daron and John Allen's future. It's a long off season, man. So we taking bites out of the apple. You hear me? We back on, I don't know if we're going to do Monday or Tuesday, but the Fellas Trap or Die podcast is back next week. Probably Tuesday. Okay. Enjoy y'all weekend. Stay safe. And let's hear what y'all got to say about the Senior Bowl if y'all watch it tomorrow. Let's see what y'all got to say. Let's bring that to the show next week as well. Enjoy the weekend. All that good stuff. We about here. Chop it down. Chop it down. You gon' chop it down. Chop it down. You gon' chop it down. Damn, set. Watch him throw the ball. We gon' pick it off. You gon' let him hit the hole or you gon' cut it off. You gon' play through 4th and long or you gon' punt it off. Your defenders heavy hitters, put your pads in. Don't be looking for the ref to throw no flags in. Keep the helmet on, keep the cleats tight. You the type to want to win by any means, right? You should look alive. This is Trap or Die.